just come back from a trip to South Korea, and that's the whole point of our website, Chimaek Culture.
Sure.
What were your first thoughts when you got asked to do that assignment?
I thought it was probably a really interesting one, because I think from BBC News' point of view, it's probably one of the biggest stories in the world at the moment, what's happening in Korea. And their commitment from the BBC is to always have a correspondent out there. Now, due to various factors, the sort of correspondent who'd been there for some time had left the BBC to go and do a different job, and in between appointing a new person to go out there full time, they were just looking for a few correspondents to fill in for a month at a time. So I said, would I go out there for a month? Yeah, sure, no problem. For family reasons, it's easier for me to go sooner rather than later. So I basically went out from mid-September to mid-October, and I was very excited by it. I mean, I knew you knew the story, but you also kind of, once you read into the big story about North Korea and the rest of the world, you know that the chances of something happening are pretty slim. And although the tensions are high in the region, life really does go on as normal for South Koreans. They don't seem too bothered about it, and that's what really came across when I was there. The main reason we were out there was the big story to do with the North, and that certainly kept us busy. Well, I was out there for 4 weeks, and I would say for the first 2 weeks, the different events with what was ongoing kept us busy there. We had the declarations of war at the United Nations, both Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un sort of really bringing up the rhetoric of what was going on, and so that kept us busy around the clock, really, because you're kind of serving BBC World News in the Asia region, and then you're also serving the domestic outlets of the BBC back here, and being plus 8 hours ahead, you ended up working some quite funny hours. So that was interesting, and time went really quickly doing that. But a favourite story, I mean, to be honest, to go out and do, we did a piece about 100 days to go to the Winter Olympics at Pyeongchang. And what was nice about that is that we actually got out of Seoul, because a lot of my time was spent within the city at the office for the BBC, not going too far away from that. But for that story for the Olympics, we did actually get out of town, visit Pyeongchang, see the Winter Olympic venues, see the ski jump, watch the German ladies team who were training on the ski jump to see how it all worked. Even though there was no snow, they practiced on sort of an artificial surface. And then we went out to the coast to visit the ice hockey rink and a couple of other venues, just to see what it was all like. So that was great. That was probably the most interesting one, because it was all away from the military side of stuff, all away from the tensions in the region, and people just practicing to be the very best at their sport at different venues and meeting young people from different countries. It was great.
So what were your expectations when you first landed in Incheon?
Well, I knew that I was going to a first world country. I knew that I was going to a big city. I suppose I didn't realise how big the place was. I mean, Seoul is vast. When we did go out of the city, you'd be driving for, maybe a good hour before you cleared the suburbs. It was just a long, long way to get out of town, and a very built-up, busy city. My first impressions when I got there was it was just such a, first of all, you're jet lagged because you've flown overnight, yet you somehow landed in mid-afternoon that time, and you're trying to find your way around. And yeah, that works, but I think what you kind of don't expect, unless you've been to the Far East before, or to that part of Asia, is that literally most signs are in Korean, and unless you know some Korean, you're going to be in trouble. I mean, yes, there are some signs in English, of course there are, but it's a culture where some people know English, but are kind of reluctant sometimes to speak it, and you just felt as though you were kind of, personally I felt I was struggling to find my way around and work things out initially, although the people are very friendly and you quickly get over that and work things out. But for the first few days it was a real culture shock.
And as a journalist, what was it like working in a country where the language is so different to your own and you can't recognise any similarities?
I think it's one of the most difficult things to go to a culture or a place where you don't know much of the language and not many other people speak your language, so it's always going to be difficult for a journalist that's trying to report on events in that country. Thankfully, we have some brilliant local staff there, so as long as I was with one of our producers, or my cameraman, Usu, it was great, because then they were obviously there to translate they could tell me what was going on and translate back again. And you know, if we wanted to find something out from government spokespeople or anything like that, again, they could put the call in. But you know, I think what it brought home to me is that if you were going to go and work in somewhere like South Korea, you need to know some of the language at least and be able to work things out, because I mean, it's the polite thing to do to go and live in somebody else's place. You kind of need to know a bit of their culture and a bit of their language, and in the long term that's what you need to do, because otherwise you're struggling, and it's difficult to report on a country if you're not understanding what the media there is saying and what other people are saying, and you're trying to sort of wait for the English translation to come round through the wire, through the main news agencies or the Korean English speaking agencies as well.